Live from the Washington, D.C. area, it's the Inside Scoop, Emerald Planet. All the ecology news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's your host, Executive Director of the Emerald Planet, Dr. Sam Lee Hancock.
Hello and welcome to the Emerald Planet. As we look around the globe at 143 different nations, looking at the best practices for environmental, economic, and civil society development. In looking at these best practices, often we're looking at individual technologies, products, processes that go across the scope of many, many different nations. There are also other best practices that are being developed and showcased within one specific country. And so we're varying our various programs to show you some that are going across the globe, others are being developed in specific locations, and then extrapolating across other nations and how those best practices can be used. We have with us one gentleman who's going to be with me throughout this entire 4 different sets of segments on programs and talking about a very special development that's been happening over a number of years in the country of the Philippines. And I have with me Albert Santoli, and he's with me, goes by the name of Al, and he's the president of the Asia America Initiative. So Al, thank you for being here.
Oh, you're welcome, Sam. It's great to be here.
Glad to have you here. Al and I have known each other for quite some time now, a number of years, actually almost, I think, since almost the beginning of your organization.
Yeah.
And I've always been amazed at what you're doing. Tell us a little bit about the Asia America Initiative, and then we'll talk about the Philippines, and then we're going to take that, ratchet that down to Mindanao, and why in that very isolated area would you be focusing your best practices?
Right. Well, Asia America Initiative started right after the bombing of the World Trade Center. At the time, I was working in the Congress and working on Afghanistan, and also working on the peace process in the Philippines, in the Muslim area, as well as looking at the situation in Iraq and working on Kosovo, and was
comparing. So you already had these connections with the southern part of the Philippines because of the Muslim connection, and then how it related out to Afghanistan,
and more of a
Iraq,
global,
Kosovo, Bosnia, just all these other nations that have these areas. The South Caucasus as well? Not
the South Caucasus. I wasn't working in the area of the former Soviet Union, but the one thing that we wanted to do was show best practices in a place where no one thought anything constructive could happen because of logistics, because of isolation, because of nearly 5 centuries of warfare between Muslims and Christians, between the fact that Osama bin Laden had married into the community.
Well, let's bring this first slide up here so we can get right into this. We have a number of slides that we want to be showing on throughout the different segments that we have. So tell us a little bit about what we're looking at right here, and then how does your work from Washington, D.C. relate down into this area in Mindanao, and then how does that impact what's going on in the world?
Well, the beauty of our work is that our staff is all local. I go 3-4 times a year for 2 or 3 weeks at a time and coordinate and organize at the highest levels of government all the way down into the field so that the local communities know where it's coming from and developing the friendships and relationships that are necessary with the elders.
So that's why in this slide that we're looking at right here, that's very cogent as far as, let's see where our slide went. Let's get our slide back.
Now
so that's almost in due relationship. We got one Al Santoli right in the middle of all these gentlemen from the Philippines.
Well, these are all guerrillas from the Moro National Liberation Front, which is the largest Muslim guerrilla organization in the Philippines. And I had, over a period of 4 or 5 years when that was taken, had developed a relationship with many of their leaders because we had their kids in schools that we were supporting. We were helping with agricultural programs to get people down from the mountains so they could look to the future. And what I found is that many of the people who were fighting since the time they were children were doing so because they had no hope.
They had no hope, and that's what we're looking at right here is, assume this is the educational program. So tell us a little bit about this. We're going to march through these slides. Okay, tell us about it.
And there's nothing that will lead a kid to pick up a gun and fight more than being in a school like that, where there is no books, There's practically no chairs. When it rains, you're knee-deep in mud sometimes. And what the imams and the religious leaders asked us when I first came in was that if you can help our schools and you can keep our boys from going other places and coming back and causing trouble, then you're welcome in this community.
So
and that's
we've
what
gone
we did.
from that last slide, very crowded, almost inhumane
This is one of our
location,
schools.
to this very bright, open, and airy
Correct.
school here. And this is,
Correct.
extrapolate that from where we were to where we are
This
now.
is when we start with a school that had nothing. Within 6 months, we work on not just renovating the structure. We have local carpenters and the PTAs. When people say, who are your mediation partners? It's the PTA, because every
And
family...
we need to say, what is the PTA?
Parent Teachers Association.
Absolutely, yes. We need to
And
make sure
so we
that's
get
out there.
we get the entire community involved. Much like here, if you have to rebuild a school system, the parents have to be involved, the teachers have to be involved, and that's what we do.
Well, I'm going to slide back. So we're looking at what was before, and then we're looking
Correct.
the after. And you say this was literally within 6
Within
months?
6 months, everyone gets to work.
That is absolutely amazing. It's an
And we do this at-
incredible transformation.
Yeah.
Now, where did the resources come from in order to go from this to this?
It comes from good-hearted people here in the U.S. and in the local country. But
So it was the resources from outside of the Philippines, and then it was all local labor?
Right,
And,
and it was- and the-
action from the PTA itself, the Parent
yeah,
Teachers
and
Association.
Sam, it's people that we know, our friends that have been chipping in and keeping this going.
That is amazing.
I mean, personally, it comes down to just any man, every man and woman that's helping us to do this.
This is incredible. How does this
These are
relate?
some of our graduates. This was
Out of that very school?
in an area where there is at most a 40% graduation rate. Our schools have 98% graduation rate.
40% to 98%.
98%.
So we're looking at schools like this that are actually producing results.
We have
just
20
like
schools like that. We have over 25,000 children in our schools.
Now, this is throughout Mindanao, which is a very isolated area.
It's a tough
It's
area.
a long way from Manila, the capital city. And so what we're looking at,
Now,
this must
music
be an
and arts.
amazing transformation.
Music and arts, the parents made the uniforms. We provided some of the musical instruments. And what we want to do, because the communities have known nothing but war, trauma, poverty, our role is to help people feel like they're cared for as human beings.
Now, how long has this restive area been at war, not only with the central government, but within itself?
Since the Spanish invaded 500 years ago.
So they've been warring 500 years.
These are tribes that are used to fighting for whatever they can hold on to that's theirs. And so to be accepted within to that, you have to be able to work with them. And I found that things that matter are the children and the land. We'll get into the area about the land and agriculture later.
Absolutely.
But in this particular place where I was actually adopted by the guerrillas, not the ones with Osama bin Laden, but the ones who have 500 years of trying to fight for their homes, was the fact that we work with their kids.
So the children, then this goes back. I keep mentioning this, and people probably think it's a little funny, but I started out in 4-H, Head, Heart, Hands,
Yeah.
and Health, when I was
Yeah.
a child. And you look at, and the whole notion of that when it was started back in the 1930s is that you reach the parents through the children. So what you're doing, Al Santoli,
this is 4-H.
the Asia America
Yeah.
initiative, is that you're reaching the parents through the children in this very remote area called Mindanao in the southern part of the Philippines.
Yeah, we want this to be a global model.
Absolutely incredible. So what we're doing is we're taking children like this and then transforming into this. Now, looking at this is very Western. You have musical instruments, you have uniforms, you have ladies in marching costumes.
This was
Now,
them. They did this.
But what does this do as far as you hear about in Afghanistan and many of these countries, as far as, you know, the repression of women and the abhorrence to
This
Western
builds-
styles and all that? How
this-
does that fit to this side?
Because I've got the imams with me.
The imams, okay.
And the imams
That's the
and
key.
the muftis have said that this is in accordance with the Quran, that we're not violating anything. And in fact, because it is not Saudi Arabia, it's Southeast Asia.
And so it's a different mentality.
It's a different mentality.
Looking at this, where
Now,
are we
livelihood. We have a program for adult single mothers. We have over 120 mothers who we have helped create fishing co-ops, smoke fish, bakeries, so they can take care of their families, and literacy and mathematics, so that they can run businesses. Our oldest student was 87 years old. She just wanted
That's
to learn
incredible.
wanted to learn how to read and write before she died.
Oh, that was going to be her gift.
That's
And of course, that's her gift to the whole village to say if at 87 it's important to
Yeah.
me, then to our young people it needs
Yeah.
to be equally as important.
Yeah.
What are we looking at?
Okay, introducing technology, where there's not much electricity, and also where the teachers are terrified of computers. We took it from the old-fashioned way again, like 4-H. We went back to the 1950s and introduced TVs with videotapes into the classroom where the teachers could feel they were in control, and where there's no books, we were able to get an entire year's curriculum by grade level, grade 1 to 6, and they could be following with Sesame Street puppet-type characters their entire curriculum.
So in other words, what you're doing then in order to induce the computers into this society
Correct.
is that you went with the videos so the teacher could physically take this, insert it
With
into the
remote
machine,
control.
and they kept control.
Start and
That's
stop.
very smart. That's something it's
And at the
people don't
same
realize
time,
importance of that.
put teachers through computer training. So the younger teachers could be learning the computers and having fun with it, while the older teachers felt they still had control of the classroom. And these teachers, I have to say, they have 60 to 100 kids per classroom.
And we think we're overcrowded with 23 or 30 in the United
You
States.
wouldn't want 100
It's
kids in a
just-
classroom.
it's just
They can hardly move.
absolutely amazing.
We went into areas where the bin Laden guys were having success. And
We're talking about Osama bin Laden.
Yeah.
People are wondering now, how did Osama bin Laden, who supposedly is holed up in
There were-
Afghanistan, is all
well,
of a
there
sudden
were,
in southern
there were people
Philippines?
from here who went to fight the Russians, and they came back trained by the Saudis
And
the Pakistan, radicalized. So what we've done is kids from those communities going to high schools with no books. We found their principals. We formed a committee. The principals chose the best and the brightest, and we've provided scholarships so that they could do college and contribute back to their community. This was our first group.
And so what they're doing is they're picking up the books instead of the gun. Is
That's
that what
it.
you're saying, Al
That's
Santoli?
it.
We have about 20 seconds left, Al Santoli. What do you want to share with the international audience that's watching this show? Why is Mindanao, why is AAI developing a best practice in the Philippines?
Because it can be used in many places, because it's about people caring about people, mixing the humanitarian with the technical. The security is implied because then people will protect their own communities from extremism.
Al Santoli of Asia America Initiative, thank you for being with us. Thank you for watching the Emerald Planet as we look around the globe for the best practices and reach out as together we develop the Emerald Planet.
Some dreams are universal. Dreams that inspire us. Multiple sclerosis is a devastating disease that changes lives forever. The National MS Society does more for people with MS than any organization in the world. But we can't do it alone. To get involved, visit us online at nationalmssociety.org. or call 1-800-FIGHT-MS. This is why we're here. Because nobody dreams of having multiple sclerosis.
What's wrong with this picture? Half of young Americans can't locate economic powers like Japan and India. 20% can't even find the Pacific Ocean. Without geography, our children aren't ready for the world. Geography is everywhere. It's incredible creatures, rhythm, fashion, flavor. It's economics and politics. It's change. Understanding connections between people and places is critical in the 21st century. That's why we created mywonderfulworld.org. Go there now for your free parent and teacher action kits and give our kids the power of global knowledge. Because kids who understand our world today can succeed in it tomorrow.
Looking
We're back to the Inside Scoop Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr. Sam.
Thank you for being with us as we look around the globe at 143 nations, looking for those areas that have the best practices that can be shared with you, the viewer, regardless of your country, the state, the town, the community where you're located. We're looking at a way that we can actually start to create and develop the Emerald Planet itself, just as the name implies. We're located in Washington, D.C. I'm Dr. Sam Hancock, President and Executive Director here. And we're looking at a very special area in Mindanao in the South Philippines, an area that's been very restive to outside domination going back some 500 years. It's hard to imagine the people that you're going to be seeing in these slides. Actually, their families, their grandfathers, and all the way back have been at war, almost constant war, with that period of time. And so what we're doing now is looking at a best practice developed by the Asia America Initiative. Al Santoli is its president and creator for a number of years. And he's been going there on a consistent, persistent basis, working with the people. And so we want to introduce this entire region as a best practice and looking at 4 major different areas. So first of all, we started off with education. Now we're going to be moving into agriculture, fisheries, and other areas. Because if people can't feed themselves, they're going to be resistant to whatever the outside powers are, and even the powers within their own local community. So Ann Santoli, thank you for being here.
You're welcome, Sam.
We're going to move right to the slide we have here. Tell us a little bit about the area where we're located, what we're looking at, and why should we even care?
Okay.
I think that's really the most cogent question we can ask right now.
The critical thing is the Philippines is 7,000 islands that separates the Eastern Pacific from the Western Pacific, meaning the United States, Hawaii, etc. It's right across the water from Indochina, Vietnam, China, Taiwan, Hong Kong, and it's just above where all the maritime traffic between the Indian Ocean and the Arabian Sea flow up into Japan, China, Korea, which is the Palawan Passage that runs between Indonesia and Malaysia.
So what we can say, Al Santoli, the Philippines
really
is a linchpin within this whole area of Southeast Asia.
Within the whole region, and it unites east and west, south and north.
And we also, it's almost like a giant battleship there because of the influence from the United States going all the way back into the late 1800s. We use that as our toehold into Southeast Asia. And then we move into this whole area where you've been working in the extreme south, in a place called Mindanao. And then, of course, you've been working with a number of different towns. Why should we care about this area?
Well, there's 2 reasons. Number one, it is the most productive farmland area outside of southern Vietnam and southern Thailand and the entire Asia region right now. And it is very underdeveloped.
So this literally could be then the breadbasket, not only for the Philippines, but
for the whole
all of
region,
Southeast Asia.
Especially with the El Nino and with the climate changes. The areas where we're working on our farming programs are on plateaus where they're not affected by El Nino, where the soil is wonderful, and you'll see in the pictures the water is terrific. So this area is, besides the fact that it's building a model for peace between Christians, Muslims, and between warring Muslim factions, it also is about ecology, and it's about feeding their neighbors in surrounding countries.
Well, the whole thing about it is we're looking at this area in the South Philippines, and you're developing this whole area as the Gardens of Peace, and you're looking at really as a model here, Al, as the gardens that could span the globe.
Right, and with our friends you had on from International Relief and Development, that helped start us with a 40-foot container, about 1 million packs of vegetables, flowers, and fruit seeds. We started our initial assessment programs and found that just about anything could grow. And so we're working now on rice fields, we're working in fruits and vegetables, and for commercial purposes growing flowers, cut flowers.
And these can be exported to other parts of the country and all over the globe. Now we see a lot of people here in military fatigues.
Right, we bring the whole community together. This is in Marawi, which is in the Lanao del Sur province, which is right in the area where the peace process broke down in 2008. The key thing about Marawi, it has the 2nd largest inland lake in the entire Asia region, Lake Lanao.
Asia, not just the Philippines.
No, all of Asia.
Okay.
And it's a wonderful farming area. So we agreed with the local leaders from the Muslim side, because there's hardly any Christians in this area, with the religious leaders, with the universities to help with, if we can get the resources, to help with the training of the farmers, and with the police and the army from the government side, that everyone would work together for peace and focus on these gardens.
And so what you were doing is actually what is coming out of the ground, these fresh plants then, is almost a metaphor for fresh life, fresh
Correct.
beginnings,
Correct.
fresh opportunities for the military, the police, and all these various
Yes.
resistive tribes that have been warring against each other, and the central
Correct.
government for, what'd you say, almost 500 years,
Yes.
can come together over these very tender plants.
Yeah, the tender plants are the children, but it's also what comes out of the ground.
Now looking at, let's just go through this, or I guess we're looking at a typical village area.
Well, this is a refugee camp. This is the peace process broke down in 2008, just south of Lanao del Sur, and there were almost 1 million refugees. That's when we started these programs.
million
A million.
refugees.
They were hidden refugees. They were the largest new refugee population in the world, according to the UN, that no one was caring for.
And no one even knew about.
No one hardly knew about.
Now looking at these structures, as we
They
know,
just
the
put up
Philippines
plastic.
is just your rain, and you have winds, you have everything going
Yeah,
on.
it's a tough life.
So it's really a tough
A lot
life.
of babies and children were dying.
And this
during
is just
period.
from probably diarrhea and malaria. Just
yes,
the
simple
things that.
no medicine.
Now tell us what we're looking at.
Here we're looking at the typical situation where families fled from their villages that were being fought over with just the shirts on their back. Many children in any of these refugee camps, if there were 1 million refugees, at least 650,000 to 700,000 were children under the age of 16.
Now we're looking at an area here. It looks like it's very wet. We have
Right,
a
during
lot
the
of mud.
monsoon.
Okay, so during the monsoon, tell us what are some of the most common diseases that these children and adults would be facing,
All
and
kinds
what's
of
the mortality rate? of the
Waterborne
area?
diseases, so bad drinking water that causes diarrhea. The babies will die very fast from diarrhea. The hepatitis, malaria, and coughs and colds, all kinds of infections. So we brought in a lot of, for instance, a lot of Tylenol and children's Tylenol to keep fevers down. We brought in little water, salt sachets to hold in hydration. And we also brought in antibacterial. There's a lot of skin diseases, not just rashes, but diseases because they can't wash it in any kind of clean water. And as you can imagine, no sanitation. In this picture, my own children donated about 150 little stuffed animals. And we brought them into a refugee camp that had exactly, by coincidence, 150 families. So every family got a stuffed animal as a gift for my own kids. And that was showing, you know, the thrill because they had nothing. They had no toys, no books. They would cry every night. Their parents would tell us because they had bad dreams of what they left behind, and they were afraid they would be attacked there. So they had a little stuffed animal, even 3 or 4 kids around the stuffed animal.
So you have people, you have warring tribes, you have wars between the tribes then and the central government.
Yeah.
And then
Bandits,
they're actually
communists.
you're being displaced by absolutely everyone. So in a sense, you're on constant move.
For
So
some
if
of
you're
these
on a
people,
constant
yeah.
move, you have no way to develop the farmland and the forest and the fisheries because, again, you're constantly trying to move from harm's way. So how are these people actually being fed?
They go hungry. They have maybe 1 meal a day. The World Food Program is about 70% short of the food that they need for this population, and that's why we started the gardens. The WFP is not helping us with any kind of finance or resources.
Now, why is that?
They don't have any money either.
Okay, so it's
I mean-
just you have 1 million people displaced by all kinds of causes, and they're just
WFP,
out there
the
by
Red Cross
themselves.
is broke. So all of us do the best we can working together. We were one of the few NGOs and the only outside NGO, although most of my staff, almost all of my staff is local. These kids I'm really proud of. We have 500 volunteers from local colleges and high schools who are...
Again, this is in Mindanao itself?
Yeah, in the war zone. They
Okay.
live there. They're our catalysts for peace. They're Christians and Muslims. If they're going to college, they're from good families that have power. And it's a way, also what it does, besides providing immediate emergency relief, it gives people that are going to be the rulers of that area in the future, Christians and Muslims, working for the people, the opportunity to
But
develop good
also
leadership.
they're working together, communicating, and they're doing the logistics and the procurement and all these
So this-
very important principles, but they're
Yeah.
doing it at a time when it's formative and it's almost like a non-threatening environment. You're in the university,
Correct.
and hopefully nobody's going to attack the university.
Right.
You could work together, and because you're in the university, that's the excuse that Christians and Muslims then can work and communicate together. Is
Well,
that
that's
the
the way
scenario?
that brings everybody together, because
Right.
university is their home, and we just had wonderful experiences where people
Well,
forget
the
about
university almost
people-
becomes a safe haven, though.
It's a safe haven.
Because it allows the
Yeah.
parents, whether Muslim, Christian, or even animist, because they have animists in these areas, they can come together and say, well, they're doing this because they're at the university, and people, oh, okay, we understand that.
provides some cover for them.
Right, exactly.
But they'll get right in the face of corrupt officials. They're idealistic and they don't care, and plus their families are, you don't want to mess with them because of their families.
Because of just who they are and what they're doing. Now, looking at what is going on here, how are we
When
reaching
we
out
started
to
the
these
Gardens of
populations?
Peace, we not only got the officials involved, but many of our gardens are school-based gardens, and the kids do the planting. So that way
the
they're all
schools are becoming self-sufficient, and then they're in turn teaching
Correct.
the parents how to become self-sufficient within
well,
the communities
their
itself.
parents become encouraged, and then when we do the community-based gardens and then the farming, people believe, and they believe because of the enthusiasm and the energy of the kids. So again, the kids lead the process.
Now, is there any problems here between, in the Middle East, this whole thing about, the gentlemen need to be on this side, the females are in the next room. Do you have that problem in the Philippines among the Muslim populations
Well,
there?
even in those situations, we work with it. And the girls and the boys, then eventually they come together and they work together.
Now, is
But
this
there
back
are-
through the imams and
Yeah,
the others
we
within
will
the
do
community?
nothing that's not acceptable to the interpretation of the Quran.
Now,
And-
looking at this as the Gardens for Peace, we have just about 40 seconds left.
Yeah.
Tell us about this and how, again, this could be used around the globe as a best practice. Gardens
Best
for
practice in that it brings people together to serve their communities, to have the joy of planting fruits, vegetables, and flowers that come up within a few weeks, so they can see that they're bringing life into a place where maybe life is not so easy.
And also in many of these communities, too, is life has not been looked upon as being dear. It's looked upon as being very cheap and not protected.
Yeah, and in this case, we're giving people something to protect.
Al Santoli, President of the Asia America Initiative, thank you for being with us. And thank you for being with us as well as we look around the globe looking at these best practices. And we can give you the examples. They're being used in Mindanao and take it across the globe for the Emerald Planet.
She's had more than a dozen fractures. And in the next few years, she faces 2 major surgeries to strengthen her fragile bones. She's only 10 years old. Most people don't worry about fragile bones until late in life. For those with osteogenesis imperfecta, brittle bones are a concern throughout their lifetime. Find out how you can strengthen this child's future.
Diabetes is a killer. After I was diagnosed, I didn't feel sick, so I didn't listen to my doctor. Then it struck. I had a heart attack, then a stroke, and I was only 49.
Most people with diabetes also have high blood pressure and cholesterol, which can cause severe heart damage. In fact, 2 out of 3 people with diabetes die from heart disease or stroke.
Don't let diabetes destroy your life.
Call for your free diabetes survival guide. Choose to live.
We're back to the Inside Scoop Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr. Sam.
Thank you for being with us on the program called Emerald Planet. We're coming to you from Washington, D.C. as we look around the globe at many nations, looking at the best practices, the technologies, the processes, the services, and the people that can bring change or bring a better quality of life to many others around the globe. As we talked about in other programs, almost 2.5, 2.7 billion people live on less than $2 a day. What can be done to protect these people? And then we know the devastation that happened in the country of Haiti, looking at the earthquake and then the tsunami that struck, and then also the terrible floods and the rains are coming through the monsoons. What can be done in that area? And so we're looking at a segment from Mindanao, in a very remote area, in a country that many people in the United States think is equally remote, the Philippines, although it is the linchpin in Southeast and Asia. And we have a gentleman here, Al Santoli, who's president of Asia America Initiative, who's going to be talking with us about the forestation and how to bring back lands that have been abandoned, have been abused, and been devastated for almost 500 years of work, over farming, and over forestation. And so we're looking at this as a way that can be brought in as a best practice to Haiti and many other countries around the globe as we try to renew the planet. So Al Santoli, thank you for being here. And we're going to move right into the slides that we have here.
Yes.
We've got 4 juxtaposition. So just tell us what we're looking at here,
You're looking
why
at-
it's important, and then we're going to move right into how we're going to remediate some of the damage that's been done to the environment, not only in Mindanao and the Philippines, but how we're going to remediate around the globe.
Yes, this is in Maguindanao province. It used to be one of the main rice producers at a time when the Philippines had a surplus of rice that they could sell. Today, the Philippines is the largest importer of rice in the world.
But you're saying in this
And
area,
this
very
area,
rich lands
a very
and
rich
waters,
land,
and-
deforestation had caused, if you look at that upper left-hand picture, how it used to be to, this is during the dry season, it practically being complete drought because of the deforestation combined with the climate change in El Nino, but the deforestation has devastated that area.
Well, many people think of trees as something that's it's quaint, it's nice. Yes, it's cool if we go out for a walk at night or we're riding our bicycles during the day. But the trees are a part of this whole process of actually cleansing and purifying the environment. Of course, it produces oxygen for all
Correct.
of us to breathe and takes out the noxious fumes from the air. But few people don't realize that the trees are directly related to agricultural production,
Correct.
i.e. food.
Right.
And so what we're looking at here is the devastation, and then and actually
And this is
how
the rainy
this is
season.
how it's just actually more critical because of the runoff.
That's correct, because the trees also, the root systems, hold the soil in place. And what happens is that when you cut down your trees, all that topsoil runs into the rivers and the streams, and it blocks it. So when you have a hard rain, and in the case of the monsoon, which is 4 or 5 months a year, everything floods. And
Yeah,
it
and also
becomes
you're taking
unworkable.
the most productive soil and you're actually putting it
Correct.
into the streams, and then it goes into the ocean.
Correct.
And so many of the rivers, which are the roadways in many of these isolated areas, are becoming more and more clogged, which means you have less fish, you have less water that's going in
Correct.
for irrigation and providing for livestock.
And heavy flooding during half
And
of the
so
year.
and then devastation, we're looking at the loss of probably not only buildings, but also the loss of life.
Yes,
in
and
these
and
areas.
the cause of probably 300 to 400,000 people being out of their homes and living in tents for that period of time.
And one of the things that, we're looking at best practices and how the forestation and tree planting in Haiti would really help to change the environment and the economic conditions there. But if you look at a country like Bangladesh, where 50% of the population is almost below sea level or
Yes.
right at sea level,
Yes.
again, there's many best practices that we're looking at. And this is, again, further devastation. Tell us about this ox cart and how people are moving here. We see the Jeep. What's
cars
the
get
mix
stuck
of the
because of the water.
environment and the economy in this area?
It's 100%. So you're talking about if people are living on less than $2 a day when they're farming. When they're not farming, they're living in under 50 cents a day.
Which
And
means that's not sustainable.
It's totally, and it causes war. It causes dislocation. It causes the problem of malnutrition and high levels of infant death and child death. And so what we're trying to do is, again, like with the Catalyst for Peace, college and high school students that are helping with the emergency relief during wartime, we're also putting together brigades of youth to be planting bamboo and other types of plants that have deep root systems and grow fast. And they don't have the monetary value of teak wood, that used to be hardwood forest, great for furniture, but it devastated the farmland. So instead we're raising the funds to put in bamboo that has deep root system. You can cut bamboo, it grows back like a weed. And
it's a grass,
it's
actually,
a grass.
even though it may be huge.
Yeah.
Actually, I have that in my backyard, and I'm constantly fighting it. But looking at here, is this the devastation as far as the agricultural lands?
It destroys the crops.
Okay, and then so you have the flooding coming from the mountains. It's washing off the topsoil. It's coming and covering the areas. But then I would assume also with the water coming in, you're getting a brackish water.
That's
because
correct.
I understand many areas salt is now starting to intrude.
That happens
so you're
also
actually
in these delta areas.
You're poisoning the soil itself.
So what we do as always is we have meetings with community leaders, and we all work together to find solutions. This is north, a little bit north. This is in Lanao del Sur, which is on a plateau, but where the land is 85 to 90% not used because of poverty. And
So the people just really don't have the inputs. You
they
think
don't
of
have
fertilizers,
the seeds,
and all that.
Irrigation
in order
needs to
go.
be improved. So we're working with the people in the provinces that can grow the food.
Now tell us just a little bit about the people that we're looking at here. Yes, this is Mindanao. It's an isolated area. But tell us the types of people we're looking at. So people in South Africa, Uganda, many other countries can say, we have those people
These are rural people. But when I work with community leaders, the gentleman in the green shirt is the sultan of the area. He's kind of the traditional leader, and we've become very good friends.
He'd be like hereditary and also the political leader.
No, he stays out of politics.
The sultan stays out of politics?
The sultan will stay out of politics.
That's very interesting, because most sultans are the politics.
Well, in this case, the governors are the warlords. They've got the private armies. The sultan's role is to try to hold the community together.
I see. Okay.
They have to be the moral
leadership. So they have a
leadership.
different role in this
They have to be the
area.
moral leadership.
Okay, got it.
And then the gentleman that's wearing the headscarf is one of the presidents of the local university. So we're talking about how the university could have inputs, because the farmland we're looking at is right at the foot of a hill where the university is on top of. The gentleman in the pink shirt works for the governor as the province agricultural director, who grew up on a farm right in that area. And then other gentlemen there are leaders of co-ops and associations of farmers. So we have everybody together
So you have
planning.
the opinion leaders and you have the
The
local
moral
leadership
leaders
in
the
these
workers,
areas.
who know their land, and it's their land that's going to be worked. And this is what happens. When you get people working together, food comes up.
So tell us what we're saying, what we're looking at.
This is the place where you saw us meeting. This is less than 1 kilometer away. The first thing we did was a 100-acre experimental farm to see whether with the right seeds, the right input, and right irrigation, if the rice would grow.
And also, I would assume you're putting training involved
training,
in
all of
okay,
that.
the education.
And providing things, helping to provide things like water buffaloes and little like Honda engine hand tillers, and basic things that help the planting cycle go faster. And for post-production, trying to pave roads so you can dry the rice on the road, and so you keep more of it. You don't lose it. You don't lose as much of it to bad weather and insects.
Now,
and
many
whatnot.
people don't realize, having been in about 60 developing countries myself, is the roadway really is the economic lifeblood.
It sure
so
is.
you have the vehicles, you're drying the rice, you may be drying coffee and tea leaves,
Exactly.
and whatever the agricultural produce goes right onto the road.
And this is with some of the farmers. The men and the women all work. In that case, you can see what happens is, even as an outsider, because I'm trusted by everyone, if I'm in the men's section or women's section, people trust me, And I'm able to work with everyone, and there's not issues of an outsider coming in and blah, blah, blah that happens where there's hostility, because they know that I'm there putting my life on the line. I don't have to be there, and we're trying to do things together. And also I act as the lightning rod. So for clans and families that don't like each other, they can bring their troubles to me. I can share it with the Sultan, and we all work together to try to find solutions.
It's just like my work in Korea, Japan, and Vietnam, places like that. You always have to have a go-between. That is absolutely mandatory, and you become, as they call, the pillow, and you kind of soften the blow, the ideas, the friction between all the various groups.
And what happens is that you know, I make a joke about this, but I'm so jet lagged that I don't take anything personal. But when people come to you and they have a problem and they're emotional about it, they're going to yell at you. But the thing is, we all know they're not really yelling at me. But if they yell to the person that's the problem, then they'll pull out their knives and start fighting, so that I have to be the one that I say, yes, yes, I know it's my fault, blah, blah, blah. And then I'll talk to the people that matter. We try to get things fixed. I have a little notebook, and we budget things out, and I say, okay, what 3 stores should we go to if we need some rice seeds that can get us what we need for the best price? This is how much I have in my pocket. Who's going to match me?
All right,
and we all do it together.
Looking at this water buffalo, how does that relate to production and how we're increasing foodstuffs within these local areas?
For hillsides. You can use hand tillers for flat land, but for hillsides, and there's a lot of slopes, you need to have draft animals.
You have to still
the
have
old
to go
4-H.
The old, all the way back
the buffalo has to pull the plow. And we've helped to introduce some new things like sunflowers, which have never grown there before. Not because the soil can't do it, it's just there's never been access. But if you think of nutritional value, you think of fuel, and the fact they're beautiful, and it's also like a miracle. You know,
that's amazing you don't have sunflowers, because that's the essence of oil for cooking and even for lighting and eating and all that. We have just a few seconds. Tell us about this.
This is a little dam, a little hand-built dam.
Santoli, getting ahead of me. Okay. How are we going to take this? What's the best practice we're looking at here? Because we have about 15 seconds left.
Farmers know best. If you can work with farmers and traditional leaders, if you're doing development from the outside, if you go in with your ideas, you're going to fail. But if you work with people, work with the tradition, and then introduce some new technology, you can find a way to make it work.
Al Santoli of the President Asia America Initiative, thank you for being with us, sharing these best practices from Mindanao. We're going to come back and talk about some other aspects of this best practice coming from the Philippines. Thank you for being with us as we look around the globe to develop the Emerald Planet.
Osama bin Laden calls getting nuclear weapons a religious duty.
Today, materials that can be used to make nuclear weapons are stored in more than 40 countries.
Sometimes protected by just a chain-link fence.
Yet not enough is being done to lock down these materials
before terrorists steal them. Why did we learn all this?
My mother,
my son,
my sister-in-law
were all murdered September 11th.
Help protect America.
Together we can.
Please join us.
The stem cell issue is being debated throughout the country. Truth is, most everyone has an opinion, even if they don't know the facts.
Let's stop arguing and start really understanding the potential of stem cell research.
For us and for millions of Americans living with disabilities, get the facts.
Call 1-877-842-3442 for free information from the Stem Cell Research Foundation. That's 1-877-842-3442.
Following the tragic events of September 11th, there have been hundreds of violent attacks against innocent Americans.
Remember what that flag you're waving stands for.
Remember, please stop the hate.
We're stronger when we are united.
Remember
what that flag you're waving stands for.
One nation under God.
Indivisible.
With liberty
and justice
for all.
In America, there's either room for everyone, or it's not America.
Don't pick the wrong fight.
Let's keep America land of the free.
Stop the hate.
Planning a home renovation? Put this at the top of your to-do list. Because after 10 years, none of you are protected against tetanus and another potentially fatal disease, diphtheria. A minor injury, such as a cut or a scrape, can put you at risk for a tetanus infection. And while safety gear offers some protection, an up-to-date vaccination called the TD booster is the best insurance against tetanus. So get the TD booster. If it's been 10, do it again.
We're back to the Inside Scoop Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr. Sam.
Thank you for being with us as we're looking around the globe, trying to develop, and we're working very vigorously towards developing the Emerald Planet. I'm Dr. Sam Hancock, coming to you from Washington, D.C., President and Executive Director for the group called Emerald Planet. And we bring to you each week various ideas, processes, technologies, and services that can be used to bring a better quality of life to not only the 2.5 billion people that are living on less than $2 a day and face just horrendous daily trials and tribulations, but also to the entire planet. Because unless we bring about the entire planet and greening everything that we have out there, it's not going to work for any one of us. And so we're looking at Mindanao, a very isolated area in the south of the Philippines, which is a very vibrant, dynamic, and beautiful country, and is also the linchpin to Asia and Southeast Asia. We have an expert, Al Santoli, who is the president of the Asia-America Initiative, which is headquartered in Washington, D.C. It's been working there since 2002. This is a very innovative outreach area, and we just think that there are many best practices being demonstrated. So in the first three segments, we talked about the whole notion of education, to take men who would be picking up arms at a very early age, educate them, graduate them, and get them back into the mainstream of their society so they can contribute through their minds and through books, not through guns. And then we're looking at the whole notion of agriculture and how we can expand the gardens of peace and look upon that as a way to reach out. So both youth and adults and various tribes are working together to bring about foodstuffs. And then we're moving into an area where we need to work with the environment, the forestation and everything that's going on there in order to allow the water to go in and be absorbed into the soil and not to wash off the soils into the tributaries, which is actually causing even greater devastation. And now we're looking at the fourth segment, and this is something that I think you'll really enjoy as you look at the smiles and the faces of these people that have been warring for almost 500 years. And Al Santoli has brought them back together under what's called the Caravan for Peace. And Al Santoli, thank you for being here and sharing these fantastic pictures and also the ideas that you've been developing over these many years.
Oh, you're welcome, Sam.
You're to be honored for everything you're doing. We're going to go right into this Days of Peace. Tell us why that's important in the Philippines and this whole area of Mindanao, and why is it so unique and almost strange that you would be celebrating Days of Peace?
Largely because they're war zones in areas of high poverty and violence where outsiders won't go. And because our team is mostly all local people, what we've done is come to the realization that for anything, education, livelihood, ecological preservation, that if people continue to be filled with hatred and vengeance, nothing good can get done. So with the support of traditional leaders, the imams, and in areas where it's more of a Christian and Muslim balance, with the bishops and the imams, and with the support of the Office of the President for the peace process, we've taken the lead on what we call caravans of peace, which is going into areas of war and having days where people can act like human beings and come together as friends with music and dancing and games and all kinds of things that help people to feel like they're part of a normal life.
And so what you're doing then, Al, is that you're trying to break this whole cycle of violence, this cycle of hatred and mistrust that's been there from almost time immemorial, and bring these people together. And as I understand it, just like the old 4-H here in the United States, you're doing it through the youth to reach out to the adults and say, this is something that's doable.
Yeah, because parents love their children, and they want their children to have a better future. And if they can see that their children are embracing something and they feel like they're being respected as human beings, transformation could happen that no one could expect. I've seen this in Rwanda, where people who were involved in genocide were able to make peace with each other and forgive. And if there's a progress in Rwanda right now, which amazingly to me is better than a lot of places in Africa, it's because there's been that element of forgiveness and that element of of coming back together as one people, even after such tragedy and such violence took place.
Well, if you just look at these young eyes here and what they've seen, because they really are youth, and it looks like we
These are
have
refugees.
a clown in the background here.
Yeah.
But the smiles are absolutely fantastic, and you think about the hurt and pain and mistrust these eyes have seen, and all of a sudden we're morphing into something that's very beautiful, loving, and gentle.
It's like from outer space. And that was when my young staff recommended we do this. I thought they were crazy. They said, no, you've got to try it. They've never seen a clown before. They've never known anything except running from violence or their families.
All these children we're looking at right
children.
here.
And so by bringing in, if we can take a close-up of those faces, and they were doing, all kinds of silly games, but it made such a difference. And when the kids started, then the parents join in. And there have been places where we have had access, and we've started, that's why the President's Office for the Peace Process wanted us involved, because we can do what the politicians can't do, which is touch people's hearts.
And what you're doing is that you're going across tribal bounds, you're going across religious bounds.
Correct.
So you have Christians, animists, Muslims, all working together. Actually, they're in the festival, just having fun together.
Yeah.
And looking at these faces here, it just seems like there's smiles everywhere. And is there any difference in the backgrounds that we're looking here?
We're in different towns. We do many when we do a peace caravan.
But are these Muslim, Christian? What is the mix that we're looking at here?
This area, it's interesting because two of our facilitators, the young man in the red shirt and the young lady that's on the right side, are Christians. And the young lady in the middle is my country director for AAI. She's a Muslim, and with a Muslim child. But when we're all together, we put aside anything that has to do about asking each other what religion we are, and we just basically act together as human beings having fun.
I was going to say, the whole thing about this is just being human beings. Now, looking at these folks here and what they're doing and how they're having fun and working together, you see a gentleman here in the military fatigues.
Yeah, it's a Filipino Marine.
He's fully armed right in the middle of this peace caravan. Tell us about this.
Well, we have the Marines with us and we have the guerrillas watching, and it becomes like a ceasefire zone. It becomes a peace zone. And one thing, when I've asked the Philippine Marines, I said, hey, do you guys have a problem with the fact that we're organizing with people who you're usually fighting? And the response I've gotten almost 100% is no. We appreciate you doing this because much as these children are refugees, we don't want our own children to become orphans. Because if we can do this and it prevents us from having to keep fighting, we'll fight if we have to, but we don't want our children to become orphans. And the same thing, you showed a picture in an earlier segment of me with a group of guerrilla leaders. They were about to fight the American soldiers when they came in.
You mean these were coming down from the hills, actually getting ready to go to war?
People were going up in the hills,
then.
getting ready to go to war, because the American soldiers, like in Iraq and Afghanistan, were not using good practices and were bombing innocent people and other things. And we got that stopped at the Pentagon. I went back and made a report that said that, what you all are doing is you're going to be making tragedy where it doesn't have to be. You're making enemies. And at the same time, I had to go to the guerrilla leaders and say, could you please do a letter for me to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff that I can bring back to Washington to explain that it's not your choice to fight the Americans unless they keep pushing.
And they were actually willing to do that.
Yeah.
And so it's through
We
these kinds of events we're looking at right here, it gives, we'll use this whole political term, gives cover to the opportunity that through the children, the adults then have an excuse to be together at the same time, to be able to talk about not only just the fact of wars and killing and maiming and displacing people, but also planting, the harvest, the water, the rainfall, everything else that we're looking at that sustains life in these various areas.
Yeah. And that's one thing, I'm a 100% disabled veteran. I was wounded 3 times and more when I was a soldier. So I'm not naive. And I'm not just an idealist. I've been shot a few times myself. But the key thing is that you have to forgive. And once you can reach that point of forgiveness, then you can do transformative work.
Now, looking at these people sitting here in front of this sign that says Humanitarian Caravan, this is your Caravans for Peace.
Right.
What have they gone through just to show up today, to be a part of what's going on at this very moment?
Some of them have come, maybe walked 10 kilometers from
So
villages.
roughly 7 miles.
7 miles to be able to
one
be
way.
there. We also have doctors and nurses with us that help with and we also distribute some medicines like Tylenol and antidiarrheal medicines and other things, which again shows people we care about their lives more than just having fun for a few hours. We're also trying to help provide for them something that will save their baby or their child's life at a time of crisis if they get a waterborne disease or malaria or something where otherwise they would die.
Now, is there anything that you're doing at these, you're doing the health care, what about education, computers, and all that? Because in these very traditional societies, sometimes a computer is a thing to be feared, not to be embraced.
No, they
and
all ask
used.
for them.
They're all looking for them.
But the key thing is you have to train people in how to do maintenance and also how to do repairs, or they break real fast, especially in those climates. And also you need to have some generators, because when electricity goes out, you need to have the generator set to be able to keep it going. So we have whole budgets for all of this. And we're looking forward someday when either the UN or a friendly government will help us with some funds so we can expand, because right now we're doing it all hand to mouth.
I was going to say, looking at this, you were sharing with me in between the break that actually you're just doing this almost out of your own hide and trying to bring this about in these areas. And
It's
so
not
it's the
easy.
whole notion of you're looking at, because you were saying earlier, 1 million people displaced, and they were just kind of shunted to the side, and the UN and others were ignoring it. But yet we're seeing here that if you actually reach out to the people, you deal with the leadership, it's a way to bring all the people together. And again, the soldiers don't want to leave their children as orphans. They want to go forward.
Yeah, and somebody has to set the model of breaking the cycle of hatred.
Looking at this group, what's the mix?
The mix of this group, this is actually a Christian-Muslim mix in the capital city area, because the Muslims live isolated even in the capital. And so what we've done is have different high schools and universities from the Christian communities meet with, and we call this is really an essence of our peace caravan in the capital, where they all come together and learn about each other's culture. Even though they live in the same city, they don't understand or know each other.
10 seconds,
Yes.
young eyes, what are they going to see in the future?
Well,
10 seconds.
Unless people like us go in and believe in change, they're going to see more war and more suffering.
Thank you, Al Santoli, President of Asia America Initiatives. And we'd like to thank you, our viewers, for being with us as we look around the globe at the technologies, the processes, and the services to bring about the Emerald Planet.